Wow. Good afternoon. Welcome to, what are we? We're Tuesday afternoon. Jennifer, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Is Kathy coming in or are we just?
You adjusting to the new role? You adjusting to the new role?
Yes. I'm laughing and smiling, right?
Yeah.
Good morning or afternoon.
Good morning. Have we already started? I came in late. Awesome.
I'm not going to mention who we were waiting for.
I can't imagine.
Okay, we're going to get started with our budget workshop then. And our first one is Washington State University Extension.
Yes. So, yes. So, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to participate in a budget hearing, so not sure what to expect. So I don't know if I talk or you guys ask me questions. So, well, how do you want me to proceed?
You have anything, Kathy? Sometimes you have stuff to go over.
Yeah, so we have a presentation,
Okay.
I believe. So we did a comparison of what the existing budget is for these line items, and where there's reductions or where there's increases. And so, but overall, we have a decrease in the budget for this particular department. And so professional services and contract went from $59,007. And for 2026, they've proposed a budget of $55,000, which is a decrease of $4,007. And that was basically based upon our recommendation that looking at the historicals and the trend analysis, it looked like this line could be reduced, and they agreed with that. And so we've made this reduction. Mileage didn't have a budget in 25. They want some administrative mileage reimbursement. It's a whopping $25. And then lease rental equipment.
Not going to be able to drive very far.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to go hardly at all. And so lease rental equipment, that budget was $2,680. When we looked at the actuals, we felt like it needed to go up a little bit, not drastically, and this $20 increase. And then Kelso Utilities, rate increases, things like that. So this was increase in water at the Cougar Cottage due to utility changes and I guess there's a demo garden. So it's a budget of $3,800 and they're requesting it to go up to $4,500. So it's a $700 increase. But overall, for those line items, they're projecting a total decrease of $3,262. So did I get it all right?
Good job.
Now, I know I've been told in the past, but sometimes you have to remind me, I think we help with support staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The rest of the other staff and stuff comes from WSU.
That is correct. So, your professional service agreement that you have is a MOU that's between Cowlitz County and WSU Extension.
Right.
That you're paying a portion of WSU employees, like WSU faculty like myself, Of course, Gary Fredericks is retired, but we're planning to hopefully to be able to fill that position with a half-time Master Gardener Program Coordinator with the dollars with the MOU.
Cause I know, I think you had mentioned to me, WSU is making a little bit of changes.
So, yeah, so Gary retired, so he's not coming back. And then when I visit with you personally, we're also extensions looking at some regionalization related to administrators. So like right now, from an extension standpoint, I'm interim county extension director because we may be looking at shifting some of those responsibilities so that there's fewer and fewer faculty that want to be interim or want to be extension directors.
Yeah.
And so the plan though with that is in that we will free up the people in the county, like me as a faculty member, to do more programming and not have to deal with the administrative side of things from a WSU standpoint. But I would still be the point of contact for this county, like
For
a
this
department
county.
head, yeah.
It doesn't really affect anything here, right?
As far as the regionalization, no.
Well, as far as budget wise, we're still
far as-
taking, still
You're still gonna,
contributing till,
yeah, I submitted a MOU of 55,000 and sticking with that.
okay,
As per guidance I get from higher ups. The person that oversees county directors, Jim Croft, I don't know if he's on the Zoom or not, but, he's my go-to right now from an extension standpoint. So, and then I'm probably talking too much, but the main thing is, as in any budget processes with the increase of utilities at the Cougar Cottage is because we're, the demo garden, which is on Fairgrounds property, they've always paid for the water. So with all this change with the Gateway project, I made a decision to determine, okay, Master Gardener program, it comes under our budget, So just to be as a good partner with the fairgrounds, so they're not having to pay for water on a WSU.
so did they actually put a new, a meter on your,
Oh,
on that
so,
all?
so actually,
Or you just?
we already have at the Cougar Cottage already on City of Kelso on a meter, so the
Oh,
water's
okay.
already.
Expo is just
It has
paid.
already been moved over even now, so, maintenance, Aaron Ostrand has been great to get, it's been an interesting opportunity
Yeah.
with that change, but, the water is, Cougar Cottage is already on City Kelso, so it's really a true estimation, from a budget capacity standpoint, who knows, so I kind of estimate on the high side.
Yeah.
Because you never know when cities may increase their utility rates.
Who is? Okay, so if he has anything to,
As far as the lease and rental equipment goes,
Yeah.
is that copy machine, shredder? What is that?
That's the copy machine that we lease. I think Kathy knows more about it than I do, but we lease, just like everybody, all the other county departments. So we're under a contracted lease with the county. So they estimated that cost.
and I'm hearing, Mr. Croft is online and he had his hand up. Mm. Okay. He's on mute. Okay.
Sorry. I'm Jim Croft. I'm located here at WSU Puyallup and participating in a meeting actually in Spokane and dropped off just to back up Jennifer in her Cowlitz County meeting. So she referred to me as Director of County Administration, and I work with all of our county directors across the state on their administrative assignment. So during this interim, I am backing up Jennifer and kind of her go-to person if she has any questions. So we discussed the budget, reasons behind the budget, and feel confident in moving forward as presented. So if you have questions, let me know, but thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Pretty straightforward. But we appreciate reducing the budget any amount we can get, so.
Yeah. I've gotten to know the extension over the time I've been here, and they do a lot of work out there and work with one of the, if I'm correct on this, you're one of the few master gardener programs that are growing like you are.
Well, actually, we have a very active Master Gardener program, and it's my understanding historically that the Master Gardener program was started in Cowlitz County around 1985 by Jim's older brother, Joe. Joe was our county director back then. So we're a very active Master Gardener program, and that's one of our flagship programs. And of course, I'm a little bit biased because 4-H is the other flagship program. But we also have done parenting. I mean, I've met with all of you as far as what our program efforts have been. So, but with the Master Gardener program, we, in conversation with Gary, have about 115 Master Gardeners producing, they have to keep track of their hours. So, a very active group.
Jennifer, do we still have the gentleman that would help small business?
Yes,
they could-
yes,
what-
yeah. Jerry's housed in our office, and he's doing part of small business, and then there's another person at LCC doing small business. But yes, Jerry still is in our office.
Well, I continually get your guys' correspondence, so thank you for keeping us up to date on what's going on. It's nice.
You're welcome.
And Jennifer, all of our master gardeners have had a national background check. They all do have to keep track of their hours in our online system. They're all covered by L&I, so they're fully protected when they are volunteering on behalf of WSU in Cowlitz County.
And Jim knows the Master Gardener program very well. And basically what he said with Master Gardeners, the same holds true for 4-H. And I think that's the value that we bring to the county, is that it's our responsibility to direct and manage the volunteers, making sure that they're doing appropriate subject matter. And of course, it's really, that's what we bring to the county. And most of you know that we're part of WSU, but we're part of the land grant mission. And I always say the third piece of land grant, I should say the first piece, is extension, because our role is to bring unbiased information to meet the needs of the community. And of course, we also rely very much on the support of the county providing a building, and we have less than half-time secretary, but we're blessed to have that. As long as the lights work and the heat works and we got water. And even HVAC systems, 3 out of the 4 units work. We're happy,
We
okay.
even gave you a new parking lot.
And we got a new parking
I
lot.
know, that's pretty cool.
Exactly, yeah, we're good, and it's even identified handicap parking. I mean, we're good. And again, I've been doing this work for quite a long time, and I really appreciate the support of the county and the support that you provide to us.
Well, thank you guys. Okay,
That was easy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you for joining her.
Yeah.
Now we got that noxious program.
Weed. You get to deal with weeds.
I think it's important as well. Yeah. Master gardeners important. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Kelly's going to load your presentation.
Great. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? Good.
How's the year been? Is it a busy one?
It's been a really busy one. I feel like we have some really awesome accomplishments and then some other things that are just getting worse. So
Yeah.
it's an ebb and flow as always.
Well, it's good to see you smiling.
All right, I've put together a short presentation regarding our budget this year. I'll just break the ice with, unfortunately, we were not able to reduce as requested, but I will explain why in my presentation. So Just a quick reminder that the mission of the Noxious Weed Control Board is to protect the lands in Cowlitz County from the impacts of invasive noxious weeds by educating residents and landowners, land managers, and working with many other city departments, government departments at varying stages to be responsible stewards of their land. We're represented by 5 volunteer board members who are citizens in our county, divided into the 5 districts that you see on the map. And then we also have Jennifer Leach is our WSU Extension representative, and Commissioner Rader is our liaison. So we meet monthly and review our budget every month and all of the other hot topics. So next slide. Again, our program is supported by the weed laws. It's RCW 1710 for anybody who's listening who wants to look in to that. But our weed board was activated in 1974, so we've just completed our 50th year of noxious weed control efforts in our county. We administer the weed laws, prevent the spread of noxious weeds through education and empowerment of landowners. We have a lot of technical advice and assistance programs that we do not want to lose. And when necessary, we start the enforcement process, which thankfully we haven't had to follow through with. But I think that's due to our landowners wanting to do the right thing. So next slide. A quick reminder, this is the structure of our program. I report to the weed board. There's myself as the coordinator. We do have 2 full-time inspectors, and then our office assistant and 1 seasonal specialist. So he serves for 9 months out of the year. So our total FTE is 4.75. In the summer, we hire a seasonal crew through Employers Overload to help with our grant projects, and all of the work that they do is reimbursed through grants. All right, next slide. Just a few reminders of our program benefits to the community. Through our education process, we're able to help reduce impacts on agriculture, decrease the toxic plants in our community, improve a lot of our recreational opportunities. And I would say that the biggest thing is the cost of inaction is more than the cost of taking action now. So if we are able to stop the weeds now, instead of doing nothing, it's going to cost us a lot less as a community. So it's really important to keep our program going. Next slide. A recap of our financial structure. So we are funded by the Noxious Weeds Assessment, which is an assessment that the commissioners put in place. It's on the lands, not on values. So it's based on a per parcel and per acre rates. We do have additional funding through grant projects and a few other miscellaneous sources. The noxious weed laws does allow noxious weed programs to be funded through general fund, but we all know that that's a competitive pot of money, so we are not funded through the general fund. That is an option, though.
So, so you fund all your operations through the tax we've put in place?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the special assessment. And then we do have a small amount of grant funding, which I'll cover as well. The budget is proposed by the Noxious Weed Control Board, so they have approved the budget that we're presenting. And if the Board of Commissioners does not approve it or has some feedback, it can go back to the Weed Board for reevaluation, and we would be able to resubmit. The weed law also then states that there must be a hearing after that, so there's a whole process. But hopefully we're all in agreement upon our budget. So we'll see how this goes. I wanted to just quickly look at our financial summary report. This one is last year. I don't really need to see all the details, but this is an example of what our weed board reviews on a monthly basis. So we're constantly watching our cash flow, that we're within our budget and where we're at throughout the year. The bottom line graph really shows kind of our ebb and flow throughout the year. Our high points are in April when we receive the majority of our assessment funding. And then we drop through the summer as we have most of our activities going on. We get another boost in October and through the winter after the second round of assessment funds come in and our grants get billed out in the winter. So we kind of rise again then. Our expenses drop over the winter, but if you were to compare the months from this year to last year and the year before, we remain relatively stable in our expenditures. If you go to the next slide, I'd like to just highlight that our available fund balance from last year to this year is in the month of June, is within a couple $1,000s. So I think we were at 357 available funds in June of last year, and we're at 361 right now. So that indicates that regardless of that ebb and flow you see, we are very stable with our funds.
Is the assessment just on county designated properties, or is it include the cities? I mean, is it every property in Cowlitz County, or just,
It includes all of the properties in Cowlitz County with a few exceptions from the laws. Tax title properties cannot be assessed, federal lands cannot be assessed, and housing authorities are not assessed.
okay.
But everything else is assessed.
Unincorporated versus incorporated makes no difference.
It makes no difference. We have weeds in all areas that we survey for and provide services. In city, outside of city, we could probably find a weed on most properties. So
Does a city have the ability to do something different or additional that would just be targeted to their city?
They
have that
can-
ability?
they can do additional things if they adopt kind of a vegetation code. A lot of cities will have like a grass height, or some of the cities have adopted noxious weeds into their vegetation codes, but they don't have the ability to enforce the weed law. That's only been given to our program.
Right, okay.
So you can enforce the program inside city limits?
Yes.
Okay.
So Jennifer, you are the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
Not 100%. So in terms of the enforcement process, our program is the enforcement officers. So myself and one of our inspectors have our enforcement officer status. We've taken an oath and we have the ticket books and things. The landowner is responsible for the weed control. And if we carry out an enforcement upon the landowner, they have a right to a hearing with the weed board. So the weed board becomes the judge in that case. There's a whole process behind that. So yes, the executioner, I don't know about that one.
You execute whatever the weed board says.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I really wanted to represent by looking at our financials here is not necessarily the exact numbers, but again, we look at this monthly, we make sure that we stay within our balances, and we try to maintain stability throughout the year. Next slide. Okay, now we're getting into the real details. So the actual assessment rate that's currently in place is $8 per parcel and 30 cents per acre. Forest parcels by law must be assessed at 1/10 that rate. So our forest parcels that are in the designated forest land program are charged 80 cents per parcel and 3 cents per acre. That was last changed in 2023. So we've been at this rate for a few years. I think we'll be able to make it another year on this rate, but looking at evaluating our need for an assessment is on our agenda for next year to see if we need to increase, and if so, by how much. Just to get an idea of what an increase would look like for our program, if we were to increase our parcel rate by 10 cents, it would bring about $5,000 into our revenue. If we were to increase our acre rate by 10 cents, it would bring about 17,000 into our revenue. So we would probably look at some combination of that against the benefits that they're receiving to ensure we're doing that at a fair rate. We're trying not to increase it significantly, but only to what we need to maintain stability. And that's not decided by the weed board yet, but that's kind of what we're looking at for next year. I would also like to note the assessment does assess public lands now. So we added that into the assessment when we changed it a few years ago. And so that includes county, city properties, state properties. It does not still allow federal properties. That's still not allowed, but we do provide services to all of those public agencies. And so we do also collect an assessment from them.
So we're
Next slide.
taxing ourselves?
Essentially, but you're also receiving
I
a
love
benefit.
Are we also
Um,
taxing state land?
What's that?
Are we also collecting those assessments on state land.
Yes, we are.
So they pay us for the program, then do they also take care of the weeds or do we have to take care of it on their state, on state land?
It works in such a way that if we find weeds on their land, we request that they take care of it, similar to the rest of the landowners. If they are unable to, instead of going through the enforcement process, if they're willing, we could put in an MOA, which would allow them to pay us to do the work for them. I'm hoping to not have to carry out an enforcement on a public agency. It would be much easier to collaborate and just say, hey, I need help. The state law does allow us to put in interagency agreements, but we could also enforce upon them if they're unwilling to do that. So
Okay.
it just depends on what funds are available where.
So when we go and help in the monument,
Mhm.
how is that? Are we using our funds to do that? Do they reimburse us? What's that look like?
So all of the work that we do within the monument is funded through grants and contracts with the Forest Service, or we've also received grants from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation to do work up there. So none of that is coming from any assessment, and especially since they're not paying an assessment. Okay, so looking at our revenues for 2026, we have a beginning fund balance total of about 359,000. Our assessment each year will bring in about 461,000, and we anticipate 66,000 in grants. We do have a small amount of other income. It might be things like interest on our investments. We do have a class or other small contracts that come in. But so overall, we're anticipating receiving about 532,000 in revenues. I always tinge when I look at this number of 892,000 of revenues in the budget because I've never seen our fund balance that high at any given time. So it's kind of a weird number, but I would say that the number to look at is our revenue, 532,000 coming in for next year. One of the things I'll highlight on the next slide is that our vehicles are not, go ahead and change to the next slide, Kelly. So our vehicles are not part of the ER&R program, and we do have a reserved fund for our vehicle expenses. So it's part of our fund balance, but we are only using that fund to replenish our vehicles when necessary. We anticipate needing to replace one of those in 2027, and so our fund balance of vehicle reserves will drop at that point. If we can make the truck last a little bit longer, we will, but right now it's kind of scheduled for 2027 replacement. It's a 2011 truck, so I think it's had a healthy life. So there is a little bit of funding that switches from our expenditures to kind of, however you would call that, in our vehicle reserve fund, that's not actually going out.
So did this number on the previous slide, can you go back a slide, Kelly? This number is not part of the total on the previous slide?
It is part of the beginning fund balance
Nope,
on the
by the
previous
way.
slide. So if you,
It says reserve vehicle fund. Is it in that or?
yes, the 50,000 is in that, is what our vehicle reserve would be for 2026. And then it would jump up to 62,000 in 2027 before we spend out of it.
Okay.
And then on the expenditure slide, it will show the end of the year balance for that as well. Okay, so there you can see at the top, beginning unreserved is 308, beginning reserved is about 50,000. So that's our vehicle fund there.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can jump forward 2 slides.
Is maintenance on the vehicles paid out of that fund?
Sorry, what was the question?
Is maintenance on the vehicles paid out of that fund?
No. The maintenance that we have is paid out of our other services in our expenditures. So the reserve is used only to purchase the vehicles. And we add about 11 grand to that each year, just so that eventually we will have enough to do what we need to. If we can make the vehicles last longer, eventually we can reduce that number, but we'd like to have what we need to replace a vehicle as needed. Okay, so looking at our expenditures, when the Noxious Weed Board looks at our expenditures, we look at 4 categories: supplies, other services, labor, and interfund. On this bar graph, it goes in that order from top to bottom. The first is 2024, and then 2025's approved budget, 26 and 27. So within our supplies, I feel like we're relatively frugal in our program. We try to keep our supplies pretty low, but we do have kind of baseline needs. Those are things like fuel. We do a lot of surveying and driving, so that's a necessity for us. Herbicides, tools. This is also where we have our cost share program. So we have about $8,000 available to landowners to reimburse them for their costs of herbicide for priority projects. So within this budget line for the next biennium, we're increasing by about $1,300. So not a whole lot comparatively, but it is a slight increase. When we look at the next category of other services, this is our temporary services for our seasonal crew. Again, all of that is reimbursed by grant funding. It's about 45,000 of that. So that's all coming from grants. If it's not used, then it doesn't get reimbursed. So it's kind of a washout in terms of revenues coming in. We have our printing and mailing, any of our vehicle services and equipment, phones, any other kind of service that's not interfund is coming out of that line. We were able to reduce that category by about $3,000 from this year, just give or take. So we did make some adjustments there. Within our labor category, which is the largest segment of our budget, we were presented with the information that we should be looking at a COLA. So the weed board approved the same amount that I think the county is considering. So that did put our budget for labor increasing at about $8,000 each year. Most of our staff is starting to reach our top step, so we're not increasing in steps going forward. So just with COLAs. And then the last category at the bottom is our interfund expenses. This one, unfortunately, has increased, and this is completely out of the weed board's control, but by about 19,000 from this year to next year and another 9,000 the year after. A good portion of that is from our rent. As you know, the rent has been recalculated at the county. So what we were paying about 4,000 per year, we're now going to be paying more than 16,000 per year in rent. So that's one of the big increases. The auditor, the IT, insurance expenses are all going up. So those are costs we do not have control over and would be one of the primary drivers for a future assessment increase. So they're all services that we need and not complaining that we have them. I really appreciate all of the services that are provided to us from the county. But just those expenses are going up and that's out of our control. So when you look at the next slide, which I think is the last one, it does show kind of what our ending fund balances are anticipated to be at. And this does include the vehicle fund. So at the end of 2026, we're looking at an ending fund balance of 239,000. Our weed board is very comfortable with that. Just somewhere between 200 and 250,000 is about a good cash balance for us to maintain. But as you can see, the next year it does drop to about 59,000. The one thing that does not account for is unspent funds. So within our fund, if we do not spend all of our budget each year, it stays with us. It doesn't go anywhere else. It can only be used for our program. And I would say we have about 10% of unspent funds each year. So I do anticipate that the 59,000 is going to be closer to maybe 100,000 if that were accounted for. So for 2027, we will likely be looking at asking for an assessment increase.
Jennifer, I know you had an issue and a concern with regards to an FTE, 0.5% or something like that. Did you get that taken care of?
We did get that worked out, yes. So the PeopleSoft system was reporting 5 FTE, which then impacted calculations like the auditor, IT, or I'm not sure which ones all, but some of the calculations coming from Interfund were calculated based off of that, and that has been corrected. Thank you. Are there any questions related to our budget?
Good job, thank you.
Nope.
All right, thank you.
Hey, we're going pretty quick today,
District Court?
but
Okay.
just a question. Is this mine?
Help
If it-
yourself.
If it was sitting there, it's yours.
It is now.
We even have a couple over here. Commissioner Farrell was kind enough to give our participants candy.
Or is it really Commissioner Farrell's
Oh,
candy?
it's yours.
No,
He's had his share of candy this morning.
yeah.
I still got one left.
Hey, we're putting him in timeout on the candy.
Okay, so we're gonna have district court present their budget. And so I'll turn it over to Molly.
Hello. We did a slideshow because that's the thing to do, but it's not a very big slideshow because we're not really making any real changes. There was just a few things I thought I would discuss and explain a little further. So I don't have my glasses, so I'm going to get my printed one out. So talking about our expense budget and personnel, we recently had our one part-time clerk position open up. It was a retired gentleman that worked in that position, and he's now fully retired. And so that happened in August. And we're not planning on filling that for now. There's a lot of changes coming up in our office here in the next year. The state is moving to a new case management system for municipal and district courts, and it's going to be a huge change in how our office operates. And so I don't have a real great handle on how I would use that position coming in the near future. And so I don't feel like it's necessary for me to fill it at this point. So I plan on leaving that empty through this next budget cycle at least. And then we'll reevaluate and see where we are. Since we got that position, things have changed so much. Everything's electronic. There's not the same things for a part-time person to do that there used to be. So that would need some thought before we filled it again.
So when you say the state is instituting changes, are we talking like caseload type stuff, or are we talking like how you report and how you track?
Yes, our actual case management system that the
Okay.
states use, the Superior Court has the Odyssey version. The district court version is still a database from 1987, literally.
Oh, my goodness,
Um,
your whole operating.
Yes,
software.
and so we're moving to the same company that they use for Odyssey, and this has been years and years in the making. They finally got it together for district courts and municipal courts. So we're implementing in June of 2026 is when our county is up.
Is set to go.
Yes, and so our whole world will change, and so
Okay.
there's a lot of unknowns with how that's going to change our workflow. We've been using the same kind of system for that long. We've based everything, how our positions are organized and everything is based on that system. And so how things will change is really to be determined. And so I don't want to add positions or make any major changes at this point, for sure. Not knowing how we'll look.
Time you get it installed, that one will be outdated.
Of course, yes. But we're used to that, you know.
Yeah.
One less person using an abacus for that program, right?
Right, yeah. You'd be amazed if you saw it.
Slide rule.
But
Quick.
it's incredibly fast though, because it's not web-based, you know, what we're moving to is, and so are a little worried that we're used to instant gratification with the kind of database we have. And so it'd be different for all of us. For one, in our office, we'll all be on the same level. We'll all be new to knowing, figuring out what we're doing. And so it's going to be an interesting time for us.
Does the state, sorry. you
Oh,
kinda
it's
got
okay.
me on this a little bit. They're the ones going to provide the support, and so they'll have bodies on the ground, or are they expecting the county to have bodies on the ground?
We're having a meeting actually on the 9th, and we have a representative from our IT coming, but it's web-based. There's not a lot
Okay.
that our IT will need to do. We've already seen the specs on what's needed, and we're good as far as we can tell. So
Okay,
I don't think it's going to be a huge burden on our IT.
okay.
And just as a heads up, I am on the schedule for the personnel workshop, we'll go into it then, reclassify one position. It's not really a reclassification. There were some changes last year with, how much an employee's salary needs to be in order to be exempt. And we have one supervisor position that's at the level where, based on where the minimum wage is set, she sometimes is exempt and sometimes is an hourly employee. So I do want to talk to you about addressing that, getting us away from that situation if we can. So I'll explain that further on the 7th. On pro tems, so I think Kathy's already talked about this, but we are slashing that budget, which was set artificially high for a little bit of time. I wanted to explain because it's completely logical and makes total sense where Kathy would like to set it based on the pro tem usage we've had. I am asking that it be set a little bit higher than that, just because there are statutes that allow for how much time a judge can be gone. And my judges are never gone that much. And so we don't typically use all of the money that they could if they were gone, all the vacation and the sick leave, along with any overflow pro tem usage we have. And so I would hate to have something happen and have a judge be out for an extended period of time for some reason that I can't foresee that would alter our historical use, and then I'd have to come back and ask you for that, and it wouldn't be allotted. So that's my only reason for asking for it to be a little bit higher than it is. If you were to look at what we've used in the past, you would wonder why I am asking for that. But that's my only reason. Most likely it won't get used and it'll get turned back to you, but that's my fear. The only thing, another thing that looks a little bit different from the past is our intergovernmental budget line. That's where pass-through money from grants and reimbursement programs sits. So as we've talked about before, the interpreter reimbursement is in flux all the time and has been historically going up. So it looks like it's in my expense budget, but really it's all accounted for in revenues. The city of Longview also had applied for a therapeutic court grant that they were awarded. That is through the AOC Administrative Office of Courts, though, so I had to sign for that once they were approved for that. And so any funds, any reimbursements they get, if they use it, I know that they're having their own discussions about that, but that will pass through. But like I said, it would only be if they had an expense and the state or AOC gave us the money to pass through to them. So it's not a county expense.
Molly, can we go back to the pro tem real quick?
Sure.
Are those funds similar to payroll where once it's set, when it's allocated to payroll, we can't touch it all year long and it's set aside for that? Okay.
Yeah,
Same.
it's in our personnel labor cost.
Okay.
And so it's its own budget restriction. Yes.
And then travel. I didn't reduce our travel expected expenses just because judges have continuing education requirements and administration does at this point. They actually passed a court rule in 2023 that I have to do it also. So I can't avoid needing to do certain training, and neither can my judges. But my judges are at conference right now, and they're all three doing it by Zoom. The state is getting better by offering that for a lot of things. And so when it's available and when we feel like it's appropriate to do it that way, we will. And so we may not use it as much as we have in the past. But once again, I never know for sure. That's kind of a new emerging trend on the court end. So I don't know that they'll keep doing that for all the trainings, but I would think so if they're doing it now. So. Okay, so on the revenue end, as we've talked about before, Filings are going up incrementally here, and so I do expect to get more revenue from the cities on that, and we've also changed the rates, and so those are expected to go up. How much is always just depend on how much the police activity is, and so I can only predict based on last year's, but it looks like it'll go that way. And also the interpreter reimbursement is unpredictable, but it's been trending upward. So I expect to get more money back from them. Our interpreter expenses go up all the time too, though. So. And then, so we'll move on to probation, our small department. No real changes with them. Have the same personnel, no real increases requested there. And revenues, kind of like with our filings, they're tied to our filings. And so the more criminal cases filed, the more likely someone is to get placed on probation. And then more likely it is that we'll receive probation fees from the people placed on probation. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you very much.
Oops. No, it's fine. Yeah, I told that our last presentation today is the sheriff's office. And I told them if they could be here 30 minutes before their time, but we have flown through these presentations and they're not expected to be here, what, till 3? Till 3. They might be early, but
Okay. We can take care of a couple of things. Maybe we can Bailey, give them a buzz, see if they can head over or something. Until we change our travel policy, we need to approve when we go to conference. This is the one in, yeah. And I would suggest if you guys are planning on going, and we just approve it for all three. We good with that? Okay. The other quick thing I have, and I don't think it's a big thing, but I want to run it by you, is it was brought to an entity in the county. DNR will, if you have a good reason, you can apply to DNR to take some of their property, transfer ownership of property from DNR to
This county.
to the county.
Okay.
The tribes, Cowlitz tribe does it quite a bit. The piece out in Old Aqua was
Right.
one of those, and one up Spirit Lake Highway they're working on now. Well, that got me to thinking, we're in the middle of redoing our county plan, that maybe we should try to identify pieces that at some point in time we might have an interest in.
Yeah.
And so I sat down with Tracy and Adam and Mike yesterday just to throw it out to see if they told me I was crazy or if it made some kind of sense, and if Adam wanted to take it on. And they felt it made some kind of sense. If you had Adam pointed out, what if you have a area that you think could be high density, and there is a piece of property that you could maybe apply for, and down the road, it could be a waste treatment plant, or it could be transit area, or it could be whatever.
Right.
And so I told him, well, let me run it by my seatmates, and if they don't see any big flaws or red flags on that, well, Adam thought he could add that to the plan and identify some of those areas for the county plan.
Oh, I think that's a good idea.
I do too, just given the fact that so much of our county, just take Kalama, for example. As you're coming up the freeway, you got the river on the left-hand side and everything else is up that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think any parcel that we identify that would be useful for us in the future, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Because we're pretty limited.
Yeah.
Tell them we're all good with that. I wanted to make sure they didn't beat me up first.
Yeah. I tell them, don't be shy about it.
Yeah.
Grab a few extra ones.
Well, even if they can identify it on the map and we see an area that's really, really growing, And whether we're still sitting in these seats or whoever's sitting in these seats can say, hey, maybe we should start, and I don't know what that process is, but maybe we should start this process. And
Yeah. Yeah. Good idea.
That's the table where the Cowlitz Economic Development Council.
Oh. And we're doing a table, right? Okay. We've, last 2 years, we usually support the CEDC at their annual meeting. We buy a table. And, the commissioners are there and then we open it up to staff. And then staff fill in the rest of the seats. What are there? Are there 8 seats? 6 seats, 8 seats? 450 for a table of 8, yeah.
And it's for the CEDC?
CEDC annual meeting. Last year, Representative Lucy Cat Perez spoke. This year, it looks like this Kurt Miller, CEO and Executive Director of Northwest Public Power Association.
Yeah, I'm
So-
bring that, yeah.
I don't want just to assume you guys want to,
How much is it?
it's 450 for the table.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You want to wait for Brad? Okay. Well, we blitzed through. We actually had, I felt good about this morning. I think that went well.
Yeah,
Y'all,
me too.
I think, felt pretty good about it. Y'all did well.
Yeah, I agree. And that was excellent. A lot of input, a lot of exchanges, of
He's
discussion.
and I'll give Kelly credit for this. When we switch to Monday and we actually go over the agenda and we sit down and we get so much answered before,
Before we're live.
yeah, before we're live, that it just really makes it, much smoother.
Yeah, it's a easy discussion on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. No surprises. Well, not very many.
I didn't care if some other, I thought there'd be some more vocal side show up, but they didn't. So
Yeah.
I guess it went smooth anyway, so it was fine.
Well, and from my perspective, not having any experience with, other than the meetings that we attended during the campaign, I feel like having that invocation also set the tone for the meeting.
Yeah,
I really do.
it was nice to Mayor Reuter come up and did it for us today.
Yeah.
So if by some fate he would have been sitting there, then you would have had to come up and do it, Steve.
Guess I could. Already got one arm in position.
We got you an almond and a peanut Snickers, Kathy, because we weren't sure which one you would like. Commissioner Farrell's awfully generous.
And there's still a couple over on the other desk. In case you didn't,
Those are for Brad.
that's, yeah, that's dessert after lunch. Yeah, it went so well. I'll have to buy 2 bags for next week. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I go up and down I looked at all the Halloween candy and then I went over to the regular candy aisle and bought a big bag. It's the way they break up all those smaller bags to get the extra bucks out of that Halloween candy. Oh, my word.
Yeah, because they put Frankenstein or something on it.
Oh, yeah, because they
Yeah.
put a picture on there.
Yeah.
The, what is it? The spooky jack-o'-lantern. Yeah. And a picture of a witch in a broom.
Ever liked go trick or treating, bring home all this candy, and he'll give it to me.
How'd you train him on that? What'd you do to him when he was young and he started taking a piece of candy? Shock therapy? What? Oh, I don't think I've ever met a person that didn't like pizza. Yeah.
I'd send my kids trick or treating and then all the candy went to elk camp.
Yeah.
And my oldest boy, he cannot stand sweets. He
Huh?
can't stand candy bars. He can't stand anything that's sweetened. He just can't do it.
You have a paternity
Yeah.
test on that kid? Is that?
I was just gonna say, look at this. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Real sugar, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, he got a broken DNA gene. Broken DNA strand.
The apple fell far from the tree. in that situation.
Yes.
I got the backup, so we can go ahead and start.
Yeah. Yeah, ruh-roh.
Business of, he didn't say it, but one of his officers said, they're in the business of saving lives, not cutting budget.
Oh, give me back that candy.
Yeah, take that Milky Way away. I just looking on this page 2, this new E ESSB 5814, that's gonna cost us a lot of money. The sales tax on the services. Yeah, and I'm just looking at the numbers for you guys alone, and that's gonna be countywide. I'm starting to gag here.
So this is the muscle that just walked in? Part of it?
Oh, waiting for the rest of the force.
This is the saving the life, not money.
Yeah. That sums it up pretty good, doesn't it?
My gosh, just on Northwest Security and what's animal control, you're talking about 87 grand a year just in that tax. Can you do any enforcement on the
that's just
state?
two of
Go
our
up there and slap them? Would you do that, please?
Can we
Yeah.
issue a warrant?
Yeah, I know it. Can we issue a warrant on the state?
That's fine.
Where do you want to start? Just right on the front page? Okay.
I'm Sheriff Brad Thurman, and with me, I finance and budget manager Katrina Harris, and I'll kind of defer to Katrina. She's the numbers person and put this document together.
That's it.
That's the intro right there.
Good afternoon. I've done this budget presentation like this for the commissioners for the last 6 years. Dennis Weber asked me to put it together because it's not really all the budgets we have control over, but it's all the budgets that touch costs associated with the sheriff's office. So we've included all of that on there. I hope that's helpful for you so you get a full picture. So we have 14 budgets that we manage. We also kind of help with the civil service, even though it's not ours, because they work for the oversight of the sheriff's office. So I help with that budget. So in 2026, we have $21 million between all of these funds, from the civil service to our regular sheriff's office, to sheriff's extradition, to our sheriff's office crime reduction team, to our boat safety grant, our benefit administration, which is our left one retirees that we take care of, our K-9 program, the Bearcat, emergency management, the range, law enforcement records. Law enforcement records has a second fund that our Spillman Motorola is paid out of, our new sheriff's equipment and technology fund. And then we actually have 3.45 FTEs paid out of law and justice fund. But you'll see down below, I have that position is also paid for by 50% public works and 5% environmental health. And then we have two positions that are our behavior health unit that we're requesting in our personnel workshop to see if there's funding to keep them by opioid funding options. So that's where our numbers came from there. And I'm going to just go over some of the major changes in the sheriff's office. Please feel free to just stop me and ask any
I do have a question.
questions.
Do we have
Okay.
any idea on the LEOFF funds, how much longer we're going to be paying for that based on the number of,
Say it again. What was the first part?
on the benefit administration, the left funds? Do
Well,
we have an idea? I mean, I know.
we have 11.
Gate, but
I have 11 guys left. We lost one this month. My youngest is 72 and my oldest is 86. And I only have one in long-term nursing care right now. Don't know.
I'm
But
wondering how many we had on there. That also.
But I'll tell you, I'll jump ahead here, but I'll tell you that it's 100% general fund dollars that we have set aside to pay their long-term expenses. So it's got a pretty healthy ending fund balance. With that said, if all 11 were in nursing care, it wouldn't even touch how much we need to have, and it would be our obligation to pay it. So we kind of need to leave that safety in there. When they all pass, whatever money's left in that fund would roll right back into general fund because it is general fund dollars. But it's just a way to make sure we have the money when we need it for them.
And one note, they're all on Medicare, so the county buys a supplement to their Medicare, so there's savings there as well. So.
But we have no long-term care insurance. So my one person, I spend $120,000 a year just to pay for the one person that I have in long-term care a year. So times 11.
Yeah.
You'd need a whole lot more than $300,000 a year because that's just that would just be the long-term care, not the health insurance and everything. Okay, so stop me if you have any questions. The sheriff's office in our direct labor has not settled their contract for 26 and 27 for the deputies. So what we do during the budget process is we stay with the 25 wages. We give them their step increases, their longevity steps, but we use it as the 25 wages. We cannot predict what it is going to be. It's an unfair labor practice to budget when it's not a negotiated contract. So this contract also determines the wages of the undersheriff, the chief administrative deputy, and the chief criminal deputy. Their current contract expires this December. That'll also affect our holiday, our overtime, and then the benefits, Social Security, retirement, paid family medical leave. Our support specialist contract for 26 was given a 2.7% COLA. But in 27, their contract is not settled. So when I did the math with the budget office, their wages are at 26 wages for 27, but with the step increases. So there'll have to be a budget amendment later on that. Overtime, there's a change of $70,000, which is offset by revenue. We have a Weyerhaeuser Patrols contract that we used to only be during hunting season, and they extended it so that it's year-round on the weekends. We just had you just approved the court security overtime for the jail. And so that's in the 26-27 budgets, $125,000 a year to have one deputy be on overtime covering the jail.
So that 125 recognizes that activity at that location.
Correct.
That
And
we-
actually, that's less than it actually cost us. So I think there's a funding, the deputies that are on law and justice, if they work the overtime over there, the money comes out of law and justice. So actually the number on that, I suspect, is probably pushing closer to, you could approach $200,000 for
So
one
we have
deputy.
two
If you didn't have
deputies.
law
right?
and justice.
Correct. Mhm.
But this is what we're expecting to spend for the next 2 years, each year.
For the one court
For the one,
security.
right.
Yes, we already have one court security. So it's 225,000 in that line item right now for two deputies to be on overtime every day that they needed for court security. And then, of course, that touches benefits, right? Social Security and retirement on there.
So we just approved the one extra one.
You did approve one extra. The other one 4 or 5 years ago was approved through the contract.
Could you give us a little bit information on the contract with Weyerhaeuser? I didn't know that they could contract and hire public.
It's been a long time thing.
Has it?
Brad, do you want to talk to that?
Historically, we've done it for a number of years, and then there was a gap. We reinstituted that here about a year ago. It's a contract for, deputies to go out and work the tree farm. And they've had existing contracts with Fish and Wildlife as well for many years. So that's what it amounts to currently. We're doing one weekend day each week, and then an evening. It varies which evening we do it for 4 hours.
And it's a $90,000 contract or a $70,000 contract?
It's a $70,000 increase. We already had a contract in place from, for the hunting season time. So let me tell you, for sure how much it is. 215,000 is how much.
How much? Say it again.
$215,000 overtime, and then I bill them and they pay us back.
And that's just for Weyerhaeuser.
That's just Weyerhaeuser, yes.
And we're increasing that 215 by 70.
That 215 has the 70
That's in there.
included,
Okay,
yes.
got it.
Yeah, not including another 70,000 on there.
So
The change from 25.
as far as the additional overtime for the courthouse, is that first deputies in there on overtime also? Is that an overtime position for both those?
The 225,000 is for two deputies on overtime to cover court security,
Okay,
one in the courthouse and one in the jail.
And that was the agreement we'd made with the courts. We had private security at one point, or private civilians doing it. They're actually employees of the sheriff's office. When there was a budget crunch back in 2009, the sheriff at that time had to make a tough choice and laid off 7 people, civilians, and then put 4 deputies in that position. They were there until, I believe it was 2020, when we were able to negotiate bringing in private security. And part of the negotiation with the courts was to have a commissioned deputy available to serve the courts and their court needs that the private security couldn't do. So it was a pretty substantial cost savings to go to that model. And so that's the agreement we had to make that happen. And now, as you know, the discussions the last few months with the courts, they want an additional commissioned deputy over at the jail courtroom. It kind of gets us to where we're at with that.
Okay, on our medical, we have a very slight increase. It's only $8,400, but the deputies have a very, very nice contract of how much medical the county contributes. And I imagine when they get their contract settled, that'll be a much bigger number. The motor pool is a cost allocation for our vehicles that is provided to us by Public Works. The number this year came in with $76,000 increase for 2026 and $109,970 for 2027. The IT cost allocation came in 13,300 higher in 26 and 64,806 in 2027. So those are ones we don't even put in. The budget office types those into our budget with the cost allocations. Something that is higher this year is software maintenance and dues and subscriptions. They're both up $20,000 each year. We have a lot of software programs that run our different things, and all of them seem to come due, and they've all increased at the same time. So we have different software things such as Lexipol, which is our policies, Vector for our scheduling, and then multiple software programs for our forensic research for cell phones and computers. And that one's called Magnet Forensics that came up. So that's a pretty big increase for us to continue with those services. Our professional service line has the Northwest Security in there. And again, with the tax, we've added 65,000 and 67,000 to the contract. It hasn't been negotiated yet, but because the contract ends December, but it says some language in there that we could maybe do an addendum for the next 4 years at the CPI increase, but that hasn't happened yet. We'll work with Kathy to get that contract rolled over. So there could be a 2.7, I'm guessing, CPI increase on that big contract there. Then the animal control section of our budget, the employees there have a 2.7% COLA and associated benefits added in. And everything else is pretty much the same, except for the Humane Society contract hasn't been negotiated for either year. So I just left it as the same. But we added 22,000 for each year because we feel that that tax is going to be on there as well. We're doing some research with the auditor's office. It's kind of a gray area of which ones for sure. Security for sure is, but some of the other ones they're checking to see, but they think that this one will fall under that too. And we have another section in our budget if you're looking through on your report here. And actually the BARS number calls it administration, but it really is our registered sex offender program. I don't know why they ever used a BARS that said administration way back when. But it is a grant that we get from for the registered sex offender support specialist position. We get half of her wage, and they do a formula on all the county agencies and how many sex offenders are in the county, and they split whatever the money is. So we usually get about $100,000 in that grant a year to help offset costs in that section of our office. Our transfers out part of our budget shows the 350 and 355 increase for 26 and 27. That's the new technology budget that we've talked to you about that we're going to establish next week I think it's next week when she has her budget amendment meeting. And then on the mental health, behavior health section, all of the wages and all of the costs have been zeroed out of our budget for now until we decide if they're going to be able to be funded with opioid money. But if you look at my budget, you're going to see it's all zeroed out on there, I guess, Brad's budget.
Are we still pursuing some other avenue than rather than working with the Humane Society next year?
Yes, a few months ago, we put together a group. You guys approved it to work with the cities to put out a request for proposal. That's happened, and they received one proposal, and it's from the Humane Society of Southwest Washington. I just got that proposal today. I can send it to you, gentlemen. It's there's only one, like I said, one bidder put in on it, so I don't know how much bargaining power we're going to have with them, but I can send that to you to let you know. But the next phase would be to each of the cities and the county, and I talked to Commissioner Dahl about who's the representative for the county is going to be, and I guess I will be doing that and sitting down and looking at those numbers and talking with the Humane Society to see what that looks like. So I guess I won't say it in a public meeting. I'll send you the 3-year proposals, and it's pretty substantial increases. We're paying 111,000 this year, so it goes up quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember they wanted a 3-year contract to begin with. Okay. Thank you.
So I know that we have some new commissioners, so I did a little more writing than I normally do just to kind of educate and maybe make sure you understand where our funding sources come from. So this budget is a general fund budget. We also receive funding from a number of other sources. We get money from a CRI, Just High Crimes, which actually is 1.3 million a year. I looked up the RCW. It does say it goes to sheriff's offices. It comes quarterly through the treasurer's office and goes into our budget. That's the biggest amount of money. We do have a contract with Pacific Corps. We have a deputy, a full-time deputy that works for Pacific Corps, and we have Labor Day to Memorial Day, we have overtime shifts that they reimburse us for. They also pay for that deputy's motor pool vehicle costs and gas well, for that one deputy there. Then Weyerhaeuser is 215,000 for theirs. We also get approximately 35,000 from BLEA, which is our academy for our new deputies. We send our deputies down to be instructors, and then they reimburse us for that if they happen to go. We expect to get about 40,000 in our gun permits, like concealed pistol licensing and fingerprints. We also, this is another funny one that was odd that we get, but we get punch board and pull tabs, about $13,000. Again, there's some RCW that says this money goes to the sheriff's office. I never see it except for a receipt that comes from the treasurer's office. Then we have sheriff's fees and civil papers. When they're served, we get about 35,000. Then that registered sex offender grant is about 100,000. We have some miscellaneous small grants, like we can get an AED or some little things sometimes through there, about 5,000 a year. Then we bill out for our animal control, going to all the other cities to assist them. So we get a little bit of money there. They've assisted every single city, and then I end up billing for their time, overtime, and get reimbursed for that. Washington State Patrol reimburses us the cost of sex offenders' fingerprints, about $4,000 a year. And then we have other minor revenue sources, but I estimate about 2 million, which no way covers our cost of our entire budget, but we do have about 2 million that comes in for 26 and 27. Then down below is the 2 personnel requests. I kind of lumped the cost for each one of them together. These are our current employees. One of them has a master's degree, is paid higher than the second one. So I included their wages, the 2.7% cost of living, and their benefits, plus their supplies, fuel, IT costs, everything associated with them for those 2 positions there. I know that's going to be a different workshop, but I wanted to at least point out things for the budget for us. And that's the sheriff's office. I got lots of other budgets, but do you have any questions about the sheriff's office? You can always call me if you have a question too. I'll be happy to go over any of it with you. So we have 3 pretty big budgets. The sheriff's is the biggest. Then we have law enforcement records and Department of Emergency Management. So I'm kind of really highlighting those bigger budgets because some of the other ones are smaller. So law enforcement records has 11 employees. They have they also have support specialists that their contract expires in 27. So their wages for 26 are in there. And once that gets settled in 27, it'll affect their holiday, overtime, and benefits, but that'll be when we amend the 27 budget in a year from now. All other lines that Julie Harris had in that budget, she really has no significant changes. We actually have a decrease in our direct labor by 6,530 for 26 and an increase by 7,000 in the next year. And that's due to she's had some really long-term employees retire in the last year, and she has a bunch of newer employees in there. However, they're a special revenue fund, so their money stays within that fund. So they're billed all these additional cost allocations. They have $31,000 in 2026 and $54,000 that will be billed to them. And the way that records is funded is that they first have a contract for after hours with Longview, Kelso, Kalama, Castle Rock, and Woodland. Then every penny that's left in their expenses gets billed back to the county and to law enforcement or law and justice fund. So law and justice pays 9.1% of whatever that is, and the county pays the difference there. So every time a cost allocation is increased, it can be increased in here, but I'm going to still end up billing the county, and the county's going to pay general fund dollars right back into this fund to pay the cost allocation. Does that make sense? So it goes up, I'm still, then if the cost allocations go up, then the bill to the county goes up because general fund end up transferring it in and offsetting the rest of their budget. So I put the increases on here. They're pretty substantial, and I know things have changed a lot, and Kathy's done a lot of really cleanup work on these cost allocations from years before, but just in 26, this janitorial facilities is going to go up another $5,000 and then another $4,000, but that's $16,000 increase since 2023 in there. That's a pretty big hit for such a small budget. Our insurance, I know, is really skyrocketing for the entire county, but it's a $41,000 increase since 2023 to just this one fund in there. Industrial accidents, pretty small. The auditor's office, every accounts payable that you do and every payroll person you have, they have a cost allocation. They bill the departments back for that time. So that has gone up a little bit too. And I get that because Carolyn's employees get a cost of living increase. So that would make the costs go up. And then IT isn't going up very much in 26 with $300, but it's going up 12,000 more in 27. But since 23, it's a $34,000 increase. But overall, on the expenses of law enforcement records, in 26, it's a decrease of 18,944. But in 27, it's an increase of 25,000.
How did we get the $19,000 decrease?
The 18,000?
18,940.
Just different line items, like I just said, the retirees that are gone, the wages are less, so then the social security is less, then the retirement's less, then medical is less. The one employee that just left had grandfathered VIBA money that was higher paid out than what everybody else gets in the county. So when she was gone, then that dropped down to be a lot less there. So I think it's probably the wages and the benefits associated with those long-term employees is less this year than it was last year. We have a lot of new ones over there. I do have Julie Harris here if you have any questions about law enforcement records. Okay, let's go to the Department of Emergency Management. I do have Scott Neves here too, and I know you guys have talked with him and asked questions. So he has 3 employees in there. They are in the budget with a 2.7% cost of living, which also affects Social Security, retirement, and paid family medical leave. He's done literally no big increases anywhere of any line he has, and he actually has a reduction of $22,000 in 26 and 27 because he has no projects for professional services earmarked at this time for that fund. But again, his cost allocations for 26 are going to increase 19,448 and 29,020 for 27. His janitorial will increase $24,000 more since 23 with these numbers. So that overall, the cost decreases by 9,794. So even though there's some increases in cost allocations, he didn't have that professional service line, so that's offset. So we have actually a decrease in 26, an $11,000 increase in 27. And this budget is paid for by interlocal agreements with Longview, Kelso, Kalama, Castle Rock, and Woodland, and through non-departmental general fund from the county. They use a methodology that they've used for many years that's tied to their contract on population and valuation. DEM anticipates that they will also get 2 different grants, one from FEMA, Homeland Security, and one from HMPG, Hazard Mitigation. So we take all the expenses and then we minus the grants out, and whatever is left to fund the budget gets put into this cost allocation with the valuation and the population. And Scott and I do it together and make sure we both have 2 eyes looking at all of that. And then that's what he bills out to each one of the agencies to get the money back to be able to fund the Department of Emergency Management. Any questions? Okay, so there's a number of them that are smaller. So these ones don't have any significant changes, but I wanted to kind of educate what's going on funding wise, so you understand what's done in those. First one is civil service. This is a general fund department. It is overseen by the Civil Service Commission. They help oversight the sheriff's office and their hiring practices. On behalf of the Civil Service Commission, we are presenting their budget. They have a part-time secretary with no benefits. They pay for the public safety testing quarterly fees for testing applicants for the sheriff's office. And their budget also pays for testing and interviewing and the costs associated with the sergeant's examination process. Their budget's pretty small. It's 33,730 for 26 and 34,671 for 2027. And I didn't put in here, but I know that secretary also got 2.7 cost of living non-represented COLA for the wage. Okay, the sheriff extradition. This budget is paid by general fund to fund overtime costs for deputies when they have cases of extradition and all costs associated with retrieving them, including hotels, meals, travel. And if any other agency goes with us, we pay for that. So if Longview goes with us, then we pay for not the Longview deputies overtime, but we pay for all costs associated with them going through extradition. They bill us, we have to reimburse them for it. So meals, hotel, we try to, it's easier if we pay with our P card to get their hotel room while we're paying for ours than billing back and forth kind of thing. This has significantly increased since 2024. The cost has completely doubled with how many cases they've had. So we've actually are doing a budget amendment. I think I have it in the next budget amendment to have to increase the overtime costs there. I don't have a reason why. Do you guys have a reason why it's increased?
Just for the increase in extradition fees, since COVID, there's something they call the chain. It's basically interstate shuttle system. A state shuttle system moves inmates around, like maybe has a warrant, Spokane, Dallas County warrant. That system would transport them back to our jail, but post-COVID, that's not a smooth process anymore. And so we're actually going to see our deputies still with these individuals. And there's also folks with medical conditions or high risk people that need to be transported. Like we had this one guy gave 3 long people that had to get a recent on-site suspect out of California because he couldn't be flown on an airplane. So we're just seeing a increase in the danger and also the medical psychiatric needs of folks that require us. The shuttle system won't take them, so that's a really key thing in our extradition that's been going on throughout Alaska.
It's not a real big budget, but it is double, like clearly double from what it used to be. Okay, the next budget is our crime reduction team, which still has that CWNTF, which is the Cowlitz Wahkiakum Narcotic Task Force. We have to keep that name because cases that have restitution owed to us, the checks still come with that name on it. And matter of fact, I just got one for like $13 the other day, and it was for a case from 1997. So we have to have that name attached. We have no idea how long we'll get restitution checks there. But this budget is paid with seized and forfeited funds, which are required to be specifically used in the same purpose, such as the crime reduction team. So if they seize $2,000 and then it gets forfeited, we get to keep 90% of it, but I owe 10% to the state. And there's significant paperwork I have to do. My best one is we sold a cell phone at auction that was seized for $4, and I owed 40 cents to the state for a cell phone. One whole report for 40 cents on there. It receives a $15,000 transfer from our sheriff's office budget into this fund to help pay for the annual required training for this team. The budget is $85,000 for 26 and $72,000 for 2027. That could increase if they get more seizures that are forfeited. It could be less if they are not successful getting a seizure in there. And then our boat safety is a grant. It is from Recreational Boat Grant, and we also get vessel registration fees in this fund, and they have to only be used for patrols on the rivers during the summer months for vessels. They do usually run Memorial Day to Labor Day. The patrols are done solely on overtime basis. And the budget is 110,675 for 26 and 98,933. We have to track how many hours and we have to do this special report to them. And we're considered a large agency. We have to have tons of hours on the water for that grant and for the vessel money. If we don't comply with that, then we don't get any vessel money or any grant money. And then we wouldn't have any patrols on the Cowlitz or the Columbia or wherever else they go on there.
Why is this particular one solely budgeted on overtime?
It's done on overtime basis. That's how the grant is reimbursed, only on overtime, but we get overtime and all costs associated. So total cost, like if it's overtime and they get Social Security and retirement, then it's about $101 an hour for overtime that ends up being billed to them and they pay us back. But we have to pay it first and then we get reimbursed. Pretty fast getting it back.
I mean, we do some patrols on straight time during the summer particularly. We have deputies out doing that as well.
But they're not part of the grant then if they're straight time.
Yeah.
Then our benefit administration, we kind of jumped ahead on that one. That's the left one. I have 11 members left. I had 19 when I came over to the sheriff's office 6 years ago. We have a general fund transfer in from non-departmental of $300,000 a year. We provide medical, vision, hearing, and some dental for the life of the member and long-term care. We currently have 11 members. We just lost one this last month. Our significant cost is our long-term nursing care. My one members, I've paid $600,000 in the 6 years I've been there or more, just for the one member. So we do have a healthy fund. It's 1.7 million and 1.4 million. I'm just estimating that maybe in the next year and I might have more in long-term care. So I budgeted a little higher in the second year to maybe have some that are there. But I don't know of anybody that's going in long-term care right now. Some of them I never hear from at all, like ever. One of them lives in Florida. And I think I've talked to him once. Today, one guy came in and I've talked to him probably 30 times on the phone, but I've never met him. Today was the first day I've ever met him to come in. So it's kind of a funny thing. Most of the time when I took this over, it had been not probably the best run program. The health insurance we had, the actual employee had to pay $5,000 out of pocket before it took and started paying. Well, that 5,000 was the county. The county, they just saved the receipt, gave it to us. We had to pay the $5,000. So when I took it over, we researched with the help of HR and we went to Humana and we hardly ever have to pay out of pocket. However, Commissioner Farrell is on my board with that. We do have some costs that come in that aren't paid for that we could be obligated to pay for. I have a couple guys that are on diabetes, and the medicine that the doctors prescribe, Humana won't pay for it. So I pay $600 a month for them to have the medicine. They tried something else, it didn't work. He had to have this special one. So we do have some costs that we have to pay like that, but usually most prescriptions are 100% paid for. Sometimes I have some hearing aids, $3,000, but they can only get them every 5 years and those kind of things in there. So, all right. So then we have our sheriff's K-9 budget. This budget is paid for by citizens and nonprofit donations. We did recently receive a $19,000 donation. It wasn't specifically earmarked for the K-9 program. It was just anonymous donation. And we did put it in there. The sheriff had me put it in that fund. We do receive a $15,000 annual transfer from our sheriff's budget in here to help with the K-9 and the vet bills that are set aside for this, and also to replace the K-9 in the next year. We have 2 K-9, and I don't know how long they are in service for our K-9s.
It depends. 7 to 8 years, but our drug dog, I think, is about 11, I believe.
So they're
Still
trying
going
to
strong,
save
so.
some up for the next replacement dog. And our last one was with training and things, it was almost $20,000 to get one, to get it trained, to get all the gear for that dog. So So that money sits in there and is ready for the next one. And like you said, this one's 11 years old. We do have one that, did we get it last year? Last year?
Yep.
We got one last year. Okay, and then the Bearcat, that's part of a 10-year bond that we have, and it's purchased by contracts with Longview, Kelso, Woodland, Castle Rock, and Kalama to maintain the bond payments and the maintenance. We had originally set this up in the sheriff's fund as a general fund expense, but there's ongoing maintenance we're collecting from them that January 1st, the money just goes away. So that money is supposed to be earmarked for the Bearcat. So we created its own fund so we'd have the money to pay their payments that came in and to have the money for the maintenance. It's not included in the Public Works cost allocation, this Bearcat that was jointly bought. So one tire is $2,000 for it. And we've had to pay for a tire already on it. So there, we are in year 4 of this bond of 10 years. There is a transfer out from our sheriff's budget to this 30,000 in 26 and 35 and 27. Some of that goes to maintenance, but it also is our portion of paying the bond payment. We have to pay our portion. I think our portion is $15,000 a year for that. The budget's set for 93,554 for 26 and 97,416 for 27. So lots of little individual contracts for each different fund there. And then we have the sheriff's range, and this one has contracts. I think I got them all in here. Longview, Kelso, Woodland, Castle Rock, Kalama, along with Fish and Wildlife, State Patrol, Bonneville Power, and Cowlitz Indian Tribe. Did I get them all? Oh, and the jail. Yeah, I knew I was forgetting one. Each agency has a contract and are billed quarterly for their use. And when I receive their funds, then 20% of it goes to the range lead abatement fund that Sean Rowe keeps track of. There is a $20,000 transfer from the sheriff's office into this fund, and that has been used for all the upgrades for us taking over the range. Jordan can talk to that a little bit more. We just finished getting a container for some things up there too.
Yeah, we'll put a cleaning container out there. And then that can upgrade to the, for, well, shut up. $7,000 to upgrade it. I guess that's the earth firm.
So this budget's 83,000 and 84,000 for 27. And the next budget is the new budget that we've been talking about constantly, the new Sheriff's Equipment and Technology Fund, but I wanted to include it as well. Budget has been discussed already and will be established when we have our meeting with the budget amendment in the next week or so. The fund will include the funds that we've already been paying into with the IT Reserve Fund for our mobile data terminals for our patrol vehicles, and the money we've been paying into Public Works to have our radio replacement fund. All that money will get moved into this one spot, so we'll all know where it's at. The funds can be tracked more accurately. Cost planning can be established for future needs, such as the replacement of our body-worn cameras, cameras on patrol vehicles, drones, star chase equipment, forensic computers, vehicle radios, and other identified equipment needs. The fund will transfer in 330,000 for 26 and 330,000 for 27. The budget will be 1.2 million and 1.5 million by 2027. And Troy Brightbill can answer if you have any other questions on that. I think we've probably given you all kinds of information on that one with his PowerPoint presentations already. And then my last budget is a law records. Spillman is what we call it, but they keep changing the name of the software. So the budget is a fund to pay for everything with our computer program that all police agencies use in Cowlitz County. So Spillman, Motorola Solutions, I think that's the name that they're using today on their invoice, but they change all the time. Then we have interlocal agreements with Castle Rock, Woodland, Kalama, Kelso, and Longview to share the cost. It depends on how many users they have, and then we bill them quarterly and they pay us. Part of the county also pays for that. The non-departmental general fund pays is scheduled to pay $54,000 for 26 and $59,000 in 27. And then law and justice funding pays a portion of that, and it should be about 4,800 and 5,000 for 27. The budget is for 277,000 and 284,000 for this year, but pretty much every penny that comes in goes out the door to them to pay for the software programs. There's not a lot of ending fund balance in there. Oh, I should say that that also pays for, help me with the name, Reliable Solutions, which is the contract we have with Jeff Robbins to oversight the IT of that whole computer program. It also comes out of there too, and I forgot to put that in there. That's all I've got for you. If you've got any questions, I know that's a lot to digest, but I thought maybe some history might be helpful.
Katrina, thank you for all this info. I want to go back to the law enforcement records budget. I
Okay,
need you to set me straight because I'm missing something here.
okay,
We have it's a $46,000 swing from the deficit in 2026 to the increase of 25,000 in 2027. When you add up the increases that we've got in your bullet points there, that number doesn't equate to that swing. Can you help me understand what I'm not understanding here?
well, I didn't give you everything. I just kind of gave you some bullet points. I'll have to pull their budget up and look at it and see what we've got here. You mean why they have less money? Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, you got the bullet points they're talking about, the janitorial, the insurance,
Mhm.
industrial. So those are not all of the increases then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't go over every single line item. Let's see. So wages are up 2,000 and 1 year, and it looks like 9,000 the next year. Oh, we don't have, one savings I can tell you right now is we had to pay out about $15,000 in retirement, cash out for sick and vacation. So that's the savings that we don't have in 26 and 27 because we had those long-term employees. I can see that right off the bat here. Medical insurance, remember I said that one employee had a really sweet deal of, what was it, $2,000 a month for, okay, $1,250, and everybody else with Viva gets $750. So medical is down significantly. So it was 34,000 and it's going to be 21,000 for each year. So there's a cost savings there. And then because the wages are not as much, the Social Security is less, retirement is less. I have yeah. Actually,
Okay, so you just didn't itemize all of the differences then?
no, I didn't go down nuts and bolts and tell you $10 here and $30 there. I just did the high changes, significant changes on there.
Okay.
But pretty much I can see she didn't make any changes to office supplies, none to food, none to gas, none to her fuel. She has a $1,000 increase in her small tools and minor equipment. I know she's doing some remodeling in her office in there, so they needed some money to do that. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the wrong budget. I'm sorry.
The only reason I'm asking is because
I'm looking at emergency management and not department of, and not records.
it's a, right off the bat, what you've got here for 2026 to 2027 is a $46,000 swing from one to the other. And if you add up all the increases just on the bullet points that you've got, it's significantly different. So I'm trying to understand what I'm not getting here.
Okay, let me look at the right budget. That will help.
Did you utilize some of your fund balance?
Yeah, we did use, okay, yeah, we did use some, Kathy just pointed out. So this janitorial facility bill came in and we had already budgeted and balanced the budget, and we took ending fund balance down and did a cost savings of using our ending fund balance instead of billing out to all the agencies. The difference of all those cost allocations, we just took it from ending fund balance there. And that, you're right, Kathy, we did do that for that one. But I was looking at the wrong budget, so that doesn't help me any. So let's look here. I'm sorry.
So you're saying that the number that we started with because of that is not correct?
No, it means that, so when I did my entire budget, so I get done, say the budget is $200,000, then I take out the after-hour contracts and whatever's left, that's what the county pays. Well, we got a bill late after we'd already done our budget for the increase for janitorial facilities. And I don't remember exactly what that number was, but whatever it was, instead of redoing all the numbers and billing the county more money, we just took out of the ending fund balance and saved billing the county more money. Because every time you give me a cost allocation, I have to bill the county more money. But we used what we had in savings to help offset that, so we didn't have to bill out. And that's what Kathy's reminding me, that we did that to save a little money on that. Oh, that's right, we did, but there were cost allocations on there. So same thing what I was just saying, we had some severance pay out budgeted in 25 that we won't need in 26 because we don't have the long-term people there.
Because when you give them the number, you give them
Mhm.
balance including that.
Oh, yeah, so the number I'm giving you on the front page, that has all the numbers on there, that includes the fund balance in it. So when it says on the front here, law enforcement records has 2,044,000, that includes how much they have in their fund balance. Then all their expenses are also included in there. So if you look at your sheet that looks like this from Kathy that has your budgets on it, there is $600,000 ending fund balance in records plus all their expenses. So they can reach into that ending fund balance and help offset costs as they need to. We need that because we have some of our partners that we bill. We've had them pay really late, and we have to have enough cash flow to be able to pay our payroll. The city of Longview waited 9 and 10 months before they even gave us 1 penny of dollars. A couple years ago, they were kind of being stinky about it, and we were out of cash flow to even be able to pay our employees their paychecks. So we have a pretty healthy ending fund balance just to float that in between. Because otherwise we don't have money. We predict that the money's going to be there, but when I bill, it has to come back or there's not real cash in the bank to be able to pay those things there. But
So this beginning, the number that you show here on the front page
mhm,
includes the carryover balance from the previous year.
correct.
And it does not reflect that on this page.
No, when I'm
Right.
showing you the law
That's-
records thing, I'm just showing you the expenses, not ending fund balance, just how much the expenses were for 25 versus 26. And over the 25 and 26, we are decreasing $18,000.
Correct. I see that.
Does that help?
I understand it. What was confusing was when I looked at the numbers, it's a huge difference. And now I understand why, because you didn't include the,
Ending fund balance in there. Yeah, I just wanted to show you what the expenses were that increased,
okay.
right? Okay, thanks, Kathy. Does that help?
It clarified.
It's lots
I
of fun
understand.
doing all the math.
I don't like to do math in public, but I was looking at that and I'm going, something's not right with that. So.
Not without your abacus.
Do you have any other questions?
Do you have any questions for Boris or?
At least one more. Janitorial facilities increases, is that just for the sheriff's office? What all facilities is that?
Kathy is now managing that cost allocation. She probably can speak to it better than I can.
So Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So the sheriff's office doesn't receive a billing because they're general fund, but it's the departments that are not general fund receive a billing for the square footage that they have. And so those costs are allocated based upon the square footage that they occupy.
So like Department of Emergency Management has their billing based on their square footage inside of that number.
Right, and it's looking at just the cost for the Hall of Justice. And so then they pick up a piece of it based upon their square footage.
Okay.
Which they
And-
have that huge room downstairs, so that
Yeah,
makes them have such.
they
a
have an
huge experience.
EOC room, and they also have some storage and things like that, but they're not charged for any space that they have that's for a restroom or common space in the building. They're not charged for anything common in the building, just for their space they occupy.
And could you also explain, I know that we have it labeled janitorial, but that's not necessarily just what that
And
is.
we requested the auditor to change the description on that account to be facilities. It used to say janitorial, and so that caused some confusion, and we said it's really all-encompassing facilities. It's janitorial, electricity, repairs, labor. It's all-encompassing.
And those two funds, records and DEM, they receive a lot of funding from the cities. So it's calculated and they pay a portion of that as part of their fee to those two departments. They share in that.
Does that answer the question?
Yes.
I don't think it was updated like it should have been back when I was even in the budget office. I don't think it was updated. So when Kathy took over, it really increased significantly over the last few years. If it had been managed probably correctly or caught up, I think it wouldn't have looked like it was such a huge hit, but it's definitely a big thing. And if you think about it, Scott Neves in the DEM has just these 3 little offices where they sit, and then they have that huge room. So it's a huge expense for that because they have that huge room in there.
I believe on the budget sheet that you were referencing that Kathy gave us, it shows overtime for the sheriff's office about $800,000. Is that right?
Yes. Sheriff's Office overtime, it's being budgeted for, currently for 25 before fourth quarter corrections.
788,000.
Yeah. And then for 2026, they're budgeting 764,000.
Mhm.
Okay, so my question is at what time does it pay to hire a full-time employee at straight time hours versus paying such large amounts of overtime hours?
Well, so some of that overtime is reimbursed.
Not any of
Not-
that.
Not that one.
Nope,
Not
none of that.
Okay. Well, there is advantages to have an overtime versus an FTE, because an FTE is if you got a senior deputy with training, vehicle and everything, it can cost us upwards of probably $175,000 a year just for one FTE. So there is I guess, a tipping point, and we do try to watch that as well. We don't always spend all that overtime money. It's kind of a balance between if we're fully staffed or not. It's a trade-off between straight time or overtime.
Well, I guess that's what I'm asking you. What is the tipping point where instead of paying $800,000 in overtime, that you would hire a full-time deputy at straight time at $175,000? Where does that tip over that you hire another employee rather than paying the extra overtime?
Well, I do know, I hear constantly that they're having a hard time filling all these overtime shifts with people.
And
Troy, can we talk-
the main thing is a need. A lot of overtime is not anticipated or really planned out. It's when you need it, when the big event happens, if you have fires, floods, that sort of thing. So that's really the driving force behind overtime.
Yeah.
Or if people call in sick, that sort of thing generates it. So it's kind of not really anticipated or really planned for.
Well, you got $225,000 scheduled in overtime just at the Hall of Justice, right? Which
Correct.
that's not a matter of last minute need. That's a scheduled overtime.
Yes.
They actually, the overtime number that you're looking at and referring to is its own line. They actually account for the court security overtime in a different line.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, he's just said that, yeah, with the 225 is the court security. So we have a separate line for that on there.
I think we've talked about this before, Brad, and maybe this is what you're alluding to, but because you and I have talked about, I've asked you that same question about overtime, and what you said made sense, and that is that there could be a situation where you have to call all your deputies in and half of them may be on overtime because of something going on, but that we can't plan for those things that aren't scheduled. And that, do we know how much, I mean, I know it's tough to say, but historically, those events, how much do they actually take up overtime? You know, that we use for those types of events?
Well, it can vary. I mean, a lot of times, like in the summer, for example, we incur a lot of overtime expense because that's when deputies like to take vacation. The big events that come along that we can't control, flooding, fire, that's, I guess, situationally dependent. What our staffing is at the time and what our needs are to get people in and work. So it's kind of a moving target. Guess we don't have a direct answer for you on that.
No, what I'm saying is the amount of overtime, how many man hours does that equate to?
The
Do we-
800,000?
Do we know? Can we
Well,
quantify that?
Well,
We can break that down. It does have, this line item does have that Warehouser and the Pacific Corps in that line item, the 764 that we just talked about. They are in there. But like detectives, when they have a shooting and people are all called in to help with that, I know Troy has talked about that significant amount of overtime.
Sheriff's Office, I can speak on this a little.
would you please come to the microphone, Troy?
Sorry. I can push the button.
Appreciate that.
Troy Wright-Bill, Chief Deputy at the Sheriff's Office. A lot of these are unpredictable costs. We may have some years where we don't have as much overtime as others. There's times that we haven't spent all that budget. But if we have a major case like a homicide, that can be several weeks of working without a day off. They can be very long hours. Other issues that we have arise is just to maintain some minimum staffing on patrol. If somebody goes out on family medical leave or something like that, oftentimes we are having to cover those short-term periods with overtime rather than hiring additional staff. So there is some flexibility to it. One of the things that I've done recently with overtime funds is addressing the traffic safety issues at our schools in the county. Oftentimes at the start of the year, the new parents are in a hurry and they're ripping in and out of school zones. So I spend a little bit of money staffing traffic shifts so those guys can be out there working radar, doing traffic safety stuff. It makes the schools and the parents very happy to see the deputies out there. It's not something that I could do long-term. It's not something that I can do year over year to justify a new position. But when we need a special emphasis for something like that, we have that availability.
Okay, don't think I'm getting the answer I'm looking for here. What's the tipping point that if right now you're budgeting $800,000 overtime, in addition to $225,000 for the court, you're over $1 million in overtime budget money. Where is it tip over that it is more productive to have full-time employees that are $175,000 a year rather than $1 million plus in overtime costs? Somehow this is not making sense to me.
I'll just, for reference for what we bill Warehouser and Pacific Corps for overtime, it's $101 an hour. That's our cost of the deputy, benefits, a vehicle and fuel. That's
Right.
kind of a baseline. As far as like the court security, our deputies by contract, they only work 4 days a week. So if we had an FTE that we hired to plug in there, we're still having to cover 1 day a week on overtime or through other means. And in addition to the 4 days a week, they get time off for vacation, sick leave and that. So the courts are in business 250 days a year, and the best we could hope for a deputy is about 180 days that they would be there. So we're still going to be covering 70 days a year additionally for like the court security function. So that's going to add up to more than the 225 even if you plug the FTE in there plus the overtime that would be incurred. So, and again, it's just a matter of, I guess, scheduling and flexibility. We don't know when the emergencies are going to rise or necessarily when the shortages are going to rise. It's just the flexibility. And I know Katrina probably speak to the surplus on that. It's kind of a push, like I mentioned, between straight time and overtime. Some years, if we're fully staffed, we don't have much overtime. Some years where we're shorter staffed, we're going to spend more overtime. We traditionally have a substantial amount left in direct labor and overtime.
Right, and that money does
Stand
roll
back.
back to the general fund at the end of the year.
So-
But I hear what he's saying. He's asking at what point could we hire one? So when I did the proposal for the overtime for the court security, when Jordan gave you that proposal. I put one as if you hired a full-time deputy with a vehicle, they have to have the vehicle. That's the first year cost. And then I did one with the overtime. And then I believe that you selected that you wanted overtime instead of having one more deputy in there. That could have saved potentially some money going forward if it would have been a straight time deputy doing that instead of overtime. The second position, however, that is in overtime is part of the union contract that they negotiated when they gave up some positions, that position will be all overtime coverage for that second, the original court security. Did I get that right with your union contract? So, but the second one isn't under that obligation. It could be just a deputy that you could staff. Is that correct, boys?
Well, it's not in the.
It's not in
it's
the contract, but you
It's
could.
just the agreement that we made on the first one. So the second one does not, but I know Dave Handy, do you have?
Commissioner, can I attempt to answer the question? So
If you come to the microphone.
so there's kind of like hypothetical and there's real life. And you asked what the tipping point is. And if we could hire the deputies to make that tipping point, I'll never see it in my career. It's just not going to happen. It takes us a long time to hire somebody. We're not lowering our standard. So a lot of effort goes into that. It takes them about a year to get on the road and we have people that wash out. So I don't think, I would just say in the next 4 years, we could not hire enough deputies to significantly reduce our overtime and, well, probably 2 years to get them out and deployed. So if 3, 4, 5 deputies, would that reach the tipping point? Possibly. But in actuality, we're always having people on vacation. We're having people that are take paid family medical leave. So our minimum staffing is at 4 people. And we usually run 4 to 5 patrol deputies out there on the county. And sometimes one of them be on overtime. We really vet our overtime. I don't know if you're familiar with the PeopleSoft system, but every time somebody works overtime, it has to be approved by a supervisor. They have to document in the system what it's for, what the case is associated with. It's reviewed by their supervisor. It's reviewed by a member of the admin. And anymore, it's getting like, we're lucky if we get people to come in on overtime. So that's the challenge for us. Did that kind of answer your question a little bit about where that tipping point is?
No.
Okay. I'm just saying, we're not going to make it.
I understand if you're gonna work overtime, you're gonna document and all that good stuff. That's got nothing to do with my question. My question is, at what point is it easier, or cheaper on the county to have a full-time employee? Now, if the full-time employee was, for example, one of the people at the court 4 days a week, Troy just gave us a good example of working at the schools on the 5th day. That person could have a full-time work week and be a straight-time employee instead of working on overtime. That type of budgeting, I understand. Make it work so that you're not paying time and a half for somebody when you could have a full-time employee. And there's obviously community benefits that you
I would
put
say
that
4
person
to
into.
5 employees would probably be what you're talking about that would equal out. But that overtime is always going to be there because people are going to be hurt, people will be in training, people will be on vacation. And it's not safe for us to run a shift with less than 4 people for this whole county.
So I think, the way I'm looking at it, Dave, is, I think the question is, I think we understand that the overtime is going to be there. I don't think that's the question, but so Sheriff, are you saying that it's $101 an hour overtime?
That's the calculated cost for like Bill Warehouser and Pacific Corps. That's the total package average from a newbie up to a top step sergeant. There's a pay range there, but that's about an average that we calculate in addition to benefits, vehicle cost and fuel cost.
Okay, so if we're looking at 101 and we're looking at rough numbers of $1 million, that's 10,000 man hours. Am I right? So
Yep.
I think what he's asking is, at 10,000 man hours in overtime, can we hire somebody for 4,000 man hours and help mitigate some of the overtime cost for straight time?
Well, for $1 million, you probably get 5 deputies, but you'd have to hire them and train them. There's upfront costs of buying a vehicle for them as well. So if we had somebody walked in today, fully trained with their own car and put them to work, we could calculate that. There's a lot of variables, like you said, and even under the union contract, they have set shifts. They work 4 days a week, certain hours. Overtime, when the need is, doesn't necessarily fit that, and that results in overtime. So would we be better off with 5 additional deputies? Say yes, it's not going to totally eliminate our overtime based on need.
But
I'm not looking at trying to divide $1 million into 5 deputies. I'm not asking you that at all.
But even if we were granted 5 deputies, it'd be 18 months to 24 months before they're out and self-sufficient. That's just the sad reality of kind of the situation.
well, I would say I understand that, but if we work towards that in the future, that would help.
So
If we work
it's
towards
like,
bringing on.
it's just a challenge for the recruitment and getting people trained up. I know that's not your wheelhouse, but just I want to express that it's a lot of vetting, a lot of work to get these people up and out on their own. So it's not an easily filled role.
You made it.
So they had lowered the standards back then. It's been about 30 years, so
Okay.
things were easier back
You
then.
got a room full of people in here that made it through the program.
Right, we got good people coming on, but it takes a while.
I understand that part of it.
All right. And for,
The number you're giving us, that's the budget number, right? How much was actually spent? For the past years, how much has been budgeted and how much has been spent?
Yeah, so we have 23 and 24 numbers for sure for you. Was spent 482,000, almost 483,000 in 2023 and 545,000 in
Even though we budgeted
2024.
800,000 each
Right.
year. So we're not spending what's budgeted.
Well, it wasn't budgeted at 800,000. It was less than that.
Yeah.
For those years.
Yeah, but
This
that's,
year.
we're talking about this year.
Correct. This year we.
So because we have 800,000 there, it doesn't mean you're gonna spend 800,000.
Right.
Correct.
You're throwing extras in there in case you have major events is what I'm hearing,
Correct.
right?
and if you look historically back, at least in my tenure as sheriff, I mean, we give back average about 5% of our budget comes back to the county each year. And that's amounted to, I think we're probably pushing 4 million in the last 6, 7 years that we have not spent. So we watch that, both the overtime and certainly our straight time budget. We prefer the straight time, but there's points where we just can't, like you said, meet minimum staffing, or the big events come up where we have to have that.
But what I was asking the sheriff is if you offered 2 deputies to help save this, could we schedule those 2 deputies to help with some of this overtime where it wouldn't be an overtime thing? Could it strategically fit with the contracts we have if we were hired, if they offered us to do 2 new deputy positions in there? And I don't do the scheduling, so that would be,
It's kind of difficult.
we-
'cause it
but that's where you're going, Commissioner Farrell.
Is timing. We never have an idea of when these things are going to hit. So like if we hired 2 people, but if something happened on a weekend or at night, we're still going to have to call people in. There's always, our job is not convenient, not predictable. We're going to have people called in at off hours for major events. We're going to need help, especially if somebody gets hurt. So it would be hard, say for 2 positions, to divine exactly what shift they should be working to minimize that future overtime hit. That's the struggle that we deal with. So we would rather be cautious with our overtime, give back any that is not needed, but be prepared to deal with emergencies whenever they strike.
Chief Spencer with the Sheriff's Office. Maybe some clarification. Are you kind of asking what one deputy, how much overtime that position would alleviate? Is that kind of what you're asking? If we were to hire one person, how much?
That would be a portion of what I'm asking.
Okay,
yes.
okay. And I don't know if that's a number that we can have access to. I mean, on what that would alleviate as part of the, and wouldn't be necessarily court security spot, but it would be just, you know, the day to day. And so I don't know if we took like the average overtime of a deputy, and if we can span that out over the course of the year and how much that would, alleviate, or how much overtime the average deputy receives each year. That might be something that we can obtain.
I think it would be something that would be worth looking into, just to the point that, as you said, there's people who have vacation
Right.
days, all that kind of stuff. Those areas, we can definitely see where that,
Yeah,
having a new deputy would make a difference. The unexpected areas, obviously, we can't, and I understand that we need a cushion for that, but in the areas that were just explained, that we can schedule for, knowing somebody, each deputy has 3 weeks of vacation or
Right.
whatever it is, I think there we might be able to,
right.
to justify a position to help with that.
Okay. That's for clarification, I guess.
And one thing that's really hurt us, I'm sure countywide too, is the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. We lose, even when male deputies have a baby, they get 3 months off, females get 4 months. And that adds up probably, I don't know, over the last year, maybe equivalent of at least one full-time deputy, if not two, and just in lost time from that. So that's kind of the reality we're faced with. And it's hard to, we have contractually defined shifts for our deputies, and trying to, even we hired more and plugged them into those shifts, that doesn't mean we're going to hit, the overtime areas necessarily.
Well, I guess, yeah. There's not a direct correlation here. Working around the clock in a mill, I had to call people in to cover vacancies. Working straight time on a day crew, major breakdowns. Sometimes I had to borrow people from other crews to be able to man shifts 24 hours a day until the breakdown's fixed. I understand there's a break-off point where I can say my crew is not big enough on a day-to-day basis to manage the maintenance I'm required to do. So I'm just looking for that balance of if we are scheduling as a matter of routine into our budget, X amount of overtime dollars, would we be better off with 1 or 2 additional deputies that would alleviate the need for sudden vacancies? I know for emergencies, when SWAT gets called out on a moment's notice, I'm not trying to fix that problem. I don't think anybody anticipates scheduling into the budget how much money we're going to need for SWAT from day to day. I'm not asking for that at all. But on a routine daily basis, when you have vacations, you have people who have kids and they take parental leave time, those types of things, I would think you'd be better off to be able to move people around a little bit and use them efficiently at a straight time rate rather than having to pay overtime, because you can't run short 4 people in the county on a shift. You have to fill the hole. Okay. Why does it have to be you only got 5 people, 4 of them are on shift, one of them goes, you only got 1 person to call and he's got to be on overtime? If you're running that close, God help us if you have a catastrophe and 3 or 4 deputies get hurt in some type of a SWAT call or something. If you're running that tight to the budget, I have a concern.
Well, and we really can't shift people on just a day here, a day there basis. We do adjust our shift. If there are people that are out on injury or vacation, we do adjust people from team to team to try to balance that. That's more long range strategy than even day to day. We really can't do that. We're kind of locked in.
Well, I understand the adjustment, but you're making the adjustment on overtime.
Oh, not always. No, we adjust, shift people from one team to the other to cover gaps on straight time. We move people to cover, to balance it out, to account for those injuries, family leave, whatever comes up long term. We do make those adjustments to balance things best we can.
Okay. I'm going to shut up. I'm done.
I just had a couple comments, if you'd allow me to. A couple things. One is this is pretty much status quo across the board. We're not really asking for more people or anything. We're trying to maintain the level of service that we provide to the citizens. And as you know, well, two things aren't getting any cheaper, and Cowlitz County's population is not shrinking. We seem to be growing and more people are coming, and don't seem to have any reductions in the calls for services and what we're facing. We continue to face a lot of serious issues out there, and I think law enforcement's a fundamental obligation of government to provide that for the citizens. It's the one exception, which is not really an exception, but it's the technology fund we've talked to you about. Those are platforms we've had and want to maintain. And I know in talking, hearing, technology discussions, a lot of the providers, they have their subscription services for so many years, and they want you to transfer to the next greatest 2.0, 3.0 and charge you more. And that's kind of what we're seeing with that. And we're trying to accommodate that with some of our technology. And we have used grants in the past, and we'll certainly look to that in the future to try to get grants to fund that, like the $431,000 we got from the legislature here about 4 years ago for impacts to criminal justice. We use that to replace our car cameras and add body cameras out of that grant funding source. Also received a grant through the Auto Theft Prevention Authority here in the state to get these. It's called Star Chase. It's a GPS dart we can put on like stolen or reckless vehicles and back off and track them. And that was funded through a grant as well. So we can continue to look for grants, and we're looking to fund like technology, have a solid base, but we'd certainly try to offset that with any grants that we could obtain or other funding sources that come along. And I do believe that this county, I believe they have lobbyists, don't they, in Olympia and Washington DC both as well?
Washington DC, we don't have a paid lobbyist in Olympia unless you consider WASAC, the organization we belong to.
I just know Longview, they do have a lobbyist, and they've got quite a bit of federal grant money for both law enforcement and like public roads through that. So I know maybe we can have a discussion on that and talk about utilizing the lobbyist. I don't know if he charges per hour or the cost benefit analysis, but I think there's some funding sources out there that we could use, probably haven't accessed.
The thing with the grants, once you got them, then eventually we take over the cost of them. And we're seeing some of that. So I'm a little bit cautious on that, but.
Yep. And the other thing I was going to mention is our behavioral health unit. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that in mental health. And I just ask if we could get an answer on whether there's going to be a funding source for that or not. We have 2 people employed, and I know they're certainly aware of the tenuous nature of the county budget and their positions. And if it looks like we're going to move forward, I'd like to let them know that. If not, let them know that as well, so they could may pursue outside employment. So we're good through the end of the year, but if there's a way to address that in the short term, I'd appreciate that.
Isn't that on next week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's all I had.
So let me ask you a couple things. I know we're running late, but I pulled up this, what do you guys call it? WASPIC or whatever the Association of Sheriffs and
Yes.
Police. And this is a release August 14th, 2025. And it's showing, and I'm curious how these numbers apply to Cowlitz County, if you think they're kind of like that or where we sit.
Are you talking about the crime report?
Yeah, national murder rate is down 3.55, Washington murder rate up 42.5. National violent crime down 6.2, Washington violent crime up 8.1. Aggravated assaults up 2.14 nationally, up 19% in Washington. Thefts up 16% nationally, up 35% in Washington. Do you think these numbers hold for Cowlitz County too, or do you think it's more King, Pierce?
I think a lot of it is that. I know there was a big spike, well, I guess during the COVID years when they kind of some of the anti-police things where we couldn't pursue people. Auto thefts went up, pursuits went up, murders went up. I think it's kind of come back down, but I think as far as Cowlitz County goes, we remain pretty steady across the board with our statistics. And I think it's driven by the larger metropolitan areas.
This is comparing 24 and 23, so, okay. But you think we're pretty steady?
Yeah, and looking at the statistics, I look at those closely and see the sheriff's office and the county that we serve, the crime rate is a lot lower out in the county just because you don't have the population of people and conflict. Also, the cities run higher. They have like the retail sector and banking that generates a lot of crime reports by the nature and just people living closer together. So I believe our number for last year was 25 events per thousand, and there's like 38 crimes they track. So in our case, we have 24 of those per thousand residents, which is consistent with the surrounding counties and substantially less than the cities. Some of the cities in the county, they're in like in the 70s. I think it was this year or last year. I think one was in the 90s for
So you said
crime
like
per thousand.
24 incidents per thousand?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of population. That's kind of the gauge. And there's 38 crimes they track in that regard. So we've been across the board really consistent and about the same.
Okay. That was my question.
Commissioner Farrell, I want to point out one thing more leaving on overtime. So this number of 765,000, that does not include the court overtime, right? Of that, I want you to make sure you understand that 215,000 of that is overtime for Warehouser that we get reimbursed for. And 200,000 of it is our Pacific Corps deputy that we get reimbursed for. I shouldn't say that because the deputy is some of the regular wage. Probably 70,000 of it is the overtime for Pacific Corps in that section. So probably almost 300,000 of it is reimbursable overtime that we get for Pacific Corps and Warehouser. So it's in my revenue that offsets that cost. So that still leaves about 375,000 for patrols and incidents that these gentlemen were talking to you about, if that helps at all.
This much?
I know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the 375 is the budgeted amount, not the actual spent amount. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Got it.
That does make a difference in my mind. Thank you.
Been informative. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anything else, Kathy? We're
I
good till
appreciate
tomorrow?
everybody's patience with me.
Okay. We will adjourn. Thank you.